All right, good afternoon, everybody. Event Trader here. Just taking a look as we get ready to head into the weekend. Pretty strong day for the markets. Probably the first time we've really seen any sort of sustained buying around above 3,000. And just continue to kind of harken back to what Brett and I had been talking about for the last few weeks in the Sentiment and Flow show. It's one of the reasons why I got a little bit more aggressive on the long side earlier in the week with the longs in FTX, XLE. A couple of jumped in for solar, of course, today. Gave up on that boom, perhaps maybe a little too early, but just watching to see if this can continue to play out, this little rally. Obviously, some upbeat expectations in front of the Chile meeting between Xi and Trump. That seems to be going on all cylinders. Would love to see to get some sort of finalization on Brexit. I don't think that's going to come next week, but it looks like they're getting closer to some sort of process where they're going to have to move forward, and I think the market kind of just wants to see that at this point and pick up the pieces wherever they may fall. And UAW, it looks like that's going to end too, that strike with General Motors, so it should help free up a little bit more capacity there, and or pull in some capacity there. So a few good things going on. Earnings, of course, the backdrop of everything, been that dirty word of better than expected, or dirty phrase I should say, which has been pretty common in the last couple of quarters and once again playing out. So we're going to break into some of these earnings here in a second, but first just want to take a look around for the week ahead and prep everybody for what we should be preparing for next week. First off, with earnings, it's the busiest week on the earnings calendar in terms of quantity. Big tech and energy names will be some of the more dominant plays there. Pointing out some of the early themes that we've seen, and what I note is that semiconductor sector, that's definitely doing better than expected. There's some signs of a bottoming there, not getting that weak guidance that was so prevalent over the last couple of quarterly reports. So that's been met well, with Texas Instruments being the obvious outlier there on that front. We've seen a lot of commentary from the transport space about improved linearity. We know that the airlines remain strong, so the LYFT seen a nice move here. Small pullback in the consumer from what we've seen. I don't know. That could just be the Q3 months there. We'll see if that picks up in front of holiday season. Perhaps I'm just saving to spend it in the holidays would be the hope for markets for sure. But some of these names, McDonald's, Starbucks, all these consumer staples, just I've seen a small pullback on pretty much unsustainable numbers on the consumer side, but hardly that they're weak by any stretch. All the credit cards have done well, and the overall numbers have done pretty good. It's just the run-ups in these stocks going into this earnings report just really made it an unattainable report that people were expecting. Cloud software plays remain under fire, but we did see a little bit of risk on trade going on here that was catching them, seeing them catch a bid. So again, we'll break into some of these names next week, but it's all about quantity. And after next week, we're going to have a pretty fair idea of what the corporate landscape is. So there'll be some comfort, I don't want to say comforting, but a little bit of familiarity with the corporate side of things by next Friday. Taking a look around at some of the other big key themes, we got the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, of course. 93% chance that they're going to cut rates, so I'd expect them to move ahead. Big question is, are they going to come out with a little bit of a pause or patient language? I do expect them to. I think that they're going to want to pull back market expectations. We've seen a couple of comments from Fed officials saying that markets have gotten a little bit ahead of themselves here. So I think that they're going to look to rein that in. Note that the econ data is strong enough that they could stand pat and don't need to act here. And obviously a little improvement on the trade talks going to help them help push them in that direction after the Fed on that Friday, which is always the lead-off day for Fed speakers, just to make sure that the market did get the answer right. We got Clarida, Williams, and Quarles. Quarles generally discusses bank regulations, so I'm not expecting as much from him, but Clarida and Williams will definitely give us a pretty good lay of the land. And of course, we should have the final plan around that QE light, or whatever you want to reference it to, as Powell said that they would probably have some final answers on what their actions would be in this meeting. On the U.S. macro front, a pretty big week, as is the norm for a flipping of the calendar. We, of course, get that first Friday jobs report. Sometimes this is postponed when the first Friday is the first or second day, but they will be firing ahead. One thing to keep in mind, too, is that UAW strike is expected to impact this number. So the headline number will certainly look down from past reports, but that's going to be factored in here and obviously be viewed as transitory. I'm just keeping an eye out on some headlines. There's a judge ruling that the DOJ must give the House a less redacted Mueller report. I don't know who the judge is, but I'll keep an eye out on that. From my standpoint, it looks like shorts are trying to chop the market down going into the close. So I wouldn't be chasing it higher on any sort of headlines like that, or chasing it lower on any sort of headlines like that. But back to the macro, the U.S. macro, we got the jobs number, of course. Some big numbers out Thursday beforehand, too, with the personal income and spending and PC prices on Thursday. Brett and I have been talking a lot about watching inflation to see if it starts coming in a little hotter than what we've seen. It's just one of those areas where people just aren't protected against. And again, this is going to be a common theme that Brett and I are going to talk about in our Sentiment and Flow show, looking to put together a basket of inflationary plays. And then on the international data front, busy week on the European GDP and PMI fronts as well from across the world. So we'll be getting some good sentiment and hard data there. A couple of central banks meet on Wednesday as well as the Fed, with the Bank of Canada and Bank of Japan expected to meet. And then a lot of inflation numbers out across the globe. So that's going to be a key theme, as it usually is towards the end of the quarter. All right, now I'm going to take a look at some of these different earnings reports. I think Scott might be jumping in with me here. So Scott, you with us? He is not with us yet. He might be jumping in here in the meantime. But let's take a look at what we got next week. Big early report, of course, with AT&T out Monday morning. They also have an investor day on Wednesday, and it's going to be interesting to see if they have anything to say about the activist investor. Of course, Elliot Singer has gotten involved there. So that could be more important than anything we catch in the earnings report. But some of the things that we'll be looking for AT&T, it's sitting right on its 50-day moving average at 36.89. That's going to be the key early level. Any failure to hold that's going to drive us down towards that 34 area. But if they're able to repeat what Verizon did, then we could see a push back up to 38.50. I do think that any sort of weakness should be bought, with the idea that there could be potential headlines down the road on their analyst day from third-party investors, Elliot Singer. So, that's going to be something that we'll have to keep in mind on AT&T. Diamond Offshore, stock's been beaten down, sitting on that 5 level. I'm not looking for those deep water drillers just yet. They'd be the last ones that I'd be watching for to make a run if the energy space does recover. Spotify, SPOT, another notable one. This one's trying to find some support around this 110 to 115 area. Been very limited so far, but a little bit of a bounce into earnings. We'll see if the report could provide any sort of boost. Next up, we got Alphabet, ticker symbol GOOG, of course. GOOG. This one is attempting to break out through that 1260 level. Looking for a pretty good report from them. So advertising, by all accounts, has been strong. So, but you know, even a strong report might not be enough to hold this name up at that 1260 level. It's going to be, I'd expect it to hold steady ahead of the news, and then obviously always tends to be volatile around earnings. So, last quarter was not a great quarter for the name. So, or I'm sorry, last quarter was a strong report for Google. So, one to keep an eye out on early. Another one, Beyond Meat, BYND, sitting on that 100 level. It's really pulled back. You know, we talked about it having that TLRA look to it, and that's certainly played out across the board here since hitting 240 back in late July. The stock's been pulling back and now just filled up some gap support and sitting at that 100 psych level, which will be a key area. And XPI, this is one that I'm a little bit more cautious on. We, of course, had the commentary from Texas Instruments about the auto sector being weak. And if you recall, we had pointed out Xilinx's likelihood of having a poor quarter, and it did, based off the Texas Instruments commentary. Xilinx then, of course, threw in a share repurchase program, and that led to a bounce in that name. We'll see if NXPI is able to provide any further sort of capital returns to offset a poor earnings report, but I'd expect 100 to come into play for NXPI if it misses expectations. Sanmina Corp, another semiconductor equipment play here. Nice chart. We've seen some strong earnings from there. So this is one that I'd be looking at for a potential breakout above that 33 area. T-Mobile got the go ahead to move forward with Swing or with Sprint. So, you know, a good report here could lead us higher above that 83 area, but I'm not looking to chase T-Mobile, TMUS. Also, real quick, looks like Blue Chip Trader is out of his QQQ swing short. He's out of the balance.
Yeah, Kev, I can mention that.
Okay.
Sorry about that. No yeah, I mentioned this actually midday. You know, the strength in semiconductors and some of the like Google and bigger tech names all coming out next week. Apple, Facebook, Google. The QQQ short, which was acting like a hedge after the strong run up in early in the mid or going into the middle of October back up to the September highs. That's basically played out. It's done its job. We got about a plus 2-point gain initially on it, and here it is with some renewed strength back to the upside. New highs, S&P back near new highs. It's time to just step to the wayside on the short. So.
All right, good stuff.
Sorry to
there.
interrupt. Yeah,
No problem. And feel free to jump on any of these
earnings.
Yeah, just a quick heads up too. We had seen something on this earlier. Peter Navarro, the president's advisor on trade, saying that it's fake news that he was fighting the trade deal. So, we'll keep an eye out on that. But definitely looks like a lot of rumors coming out trying to quell this rally. So, all right. Next up, I want to take a look at XPO Logistics, another transport name here that's seen a nice move, real steady chart as it gets above its 200-day and 50-day moving average, and one that I'd have on the radar. A couple of oil plays here. We got Rig, Transocean, pretty much the same as Diamond Offshore for Rig for me. Not in a rush to be the first one into this name, as we still need oil prices to go higher, but both of them do have a bottoming pattern going on. So if we could get this going, then I'd have a little bit more interest, but don't feel the need to be the first one in there. BP is out Tuesday morning. Nice move higher here, back up towards that 40 level, as well as Conoco Phillips COP. This one's just recently edged above its 50-day moving average. Again, this should provide us a little bit more color on that environment there. GLW Corning. I'm trying to remember who had this positive display commentary, but we are seeing this stock break back up into the 30s after languishing down around the 27 level following last quarter's poor earnings report. Cummins Engine, another name that's making a nice rally here. This is one that I felt was going to roll over and never did, and got knocked out of the short in that, of course, and here it is going towards all-time highs into its earnings print. GM will report, obviously keeping a close eye on the union talks. It looks like they have reached an agreement. Grubhub, GRUB, a highly shortened name, is going to be out. We got that IntelliSat out tomorrow, but again, this isn't an earnings place, or on Tuesday, I should say. It's not an earnings place, so I wouldn't be overly concerned with that. MasterCard, seeing a little bit of weakness going into Tuesday's earnings, so we'll see if that's going to be able to hold gains. Couple of pharma plays on Tuesday as well. Merck running up on its 200-day moving average. Good looking chart here, but hasn't been able to get above that 87 level. Pfizer, another name of interest. This one's just been beaten down, but is showing some signs of working its way off 34 level. Shopify, e-commerce play that little scary looking chart here. Definitely a poor report from Shopify, and we could see that 270 200-day moving average move into play really quickly. AMD, talked about that one before. Semiconductor space looking pretty good right here, although there was some talk that it doesn't look like Intel lost any market share, so I don't know if that would be a drag on AMD. EA Sports out. That's just sitting on its 200-day moving average here at the moment. Still along that ATVIs. Wait for a little bit of pop there. Didn't get that move, so I might be closing that one out into the close. But both, I would note that both these gaming stocks just seen real sideways action and coiling, so it could be an interesting play down the road. Enphase, that solar inverter name that we've talked about in the past, they're reporting they're trying to hold on to that 21 to 23 support level here at the moment. FireEye out, another cybersecurity play. Let's take a look at Mondelez. Looking at that one is Staples a little bit weaker as of late, so no surprise to see Mondelez slipping a little bit. Eat, Brinker Corp. That's one of the better performing. It's one of the better performing restaurant names that's been beaten up here, so keeping an eye out on that one. CME Group, that's been rolling over a little bit as of late, so one that we need to be a little careful of. Crocs, that's had a nice rally here to an, I don't know, it's an all-time high. Yeah, it looks like all-time high there. GE, as this languishes down around that 8 to 9 area, looking for some more reporting here on which direction those operations are going. One of the bigger ones out, Apple, which has just been ripping higher here, as it now is up to 245 post-IPO highs. This one is up nearly 100 points now off those December lows, and just an incredible run in the name. We'll also get Facebook that afternoon. Obviously, not a strong performer as it's just moored in those talks with Congress. Clack, another nice looking semiconductor play that's really breaking out, pushed higher here. Starbucks, we were just talking about some of the rollovers that we're seeing in these consumer names, and Starbucks definitely falls into it, but it's coming into its 200-day moving average, which I would warm up to it for sure. And maybe this is the report that we could see break the fever in that space. Twilio, another high-flying cloud name that's been really hammered as of late, coming into that 100 level, trying to hold that area. Western Digital, pretty good looking chart here. Could see a pushback above to towards 70 if they are able to report good results. Taking a look around on Thursday, things slow down a little bit, but still some good ones. We got American Tower, AMT, of course, the Tower readout here. Cigna Insurance play that's moved over its 200-day recently. Encana, ticker symbol ECA. They'll be out with results, looking to see if they can find a bounce. What else here? Kraft Heinz, which has just been sitting around in that 28 to 30 area, just looking for anybody to, as a potential interested investor, and is yet to be seen. Light, this will be bounced around in the optical sector with the trade headlines. So improving trade headlines has led to a little bit of recovery here. Yeti, a recent IPO that's one of the stronger looking IPOs that we've seen out here. Mercado Libre giving us a little bit of a read into the Latin American consumer. We got Pinterest out too. It's a IPO that our traders are playing earlier, and Qorvo, QRVO, an Apple play here. And then finally on Friday we got Baba, and one of the bigger reports, sitting there holding its 200-day moving average ahead of this news. Another big energy play in Chevron. We also got nice staples playing Colgate, CL, and Newell, both looking with CL rolling over a little bit, but Newell's definitely seen just a steady rally here. It's up nearly 30% since its last earnings report. STX, Seagate, we'll have a pretty fair idea how that space is doing after Western Digital, but people have been upbeat about it. And then finally, U.S. Steel out Friday, as we continue to watch, see if this bottoming in steel is for real and buyers are finally going to come in. Still a lot of caution around the earnings report and steel prices in general, which is going to make it difficult for U.S. Steel to rally until we see some sort of better evidence of a strong report. So that's what we're looking at for the day, for the week ahead. We'll continue to update these as we go along. And if there's any questions, by all means, feel free to write in and let me